Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. I am your co-host, Joe Kuzma. I kind of almost want to kick this completely over to my other co-host, Terry Fletcher, because this is the weekly WTF edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. Terry, how are you today?
I'm great. Coming from California. Actually had to come down to the beach to get some lack of noise at my house, so we're all good.
Oh, you are so cruel. You're going to throw weather at us. Really? You're going to throw weather at us. Okay, we started this with weather last week. I'm pulling up one of my apps right now because I've already seen what we're in store for on Sunday. We had beautiful weather in Pittsburgh last Sunday. It was like 40-some degrees. I mean, all I had to do was wear a hoodie with my jersey at the game. No hand warmers. I mean, my wool socks almost felt like my feet were sweaty. It was like if you ever saw Dumb and Dumber where he says, my fingers are freezing. Here, take these extra pair of gloves. That's what I felt like. It felt great. And now, I'm pulling this up. It's supposed to be like, I don't know, like another winter storm type thing or something coming up here. 20 degrees to 20% chance of snow right now on Sunday, low of 10. So that means when I get out to like tailgate in the morning in Pittsburgh where it's going to be nice and rowdy, it's going to be freezing cold. I can't wait.
Yes, but they say it's sold out and it's sold out quick, so.
Yes, it is.
Best news ever.
But I have my tickets, so that's all that matters. I will be there.
Nice.
I will be in the house. I can't wait. I seriously can't wait. But on the bigger and better things, the WTFs of the week, and there's a lot, and there's one we're probably going to talk about even more than a lot. So let's rifle through a few of these right now. ESPN's NFL MVP poll. So this is going to be the most valuable player of the NFL season. And I like the headline, but I also hate the headline for many reasons. It has Matt Ryan unseating Tom Brady for the number one spot. Deserving? Sure. Matt Ryan's deserving, but why is Tom Brady deserving? He missed 4 games. He was suspended 4 games.
They're saying more that he was just on vacation. They're not saying that he was, suspended for any wrongdoing or for anything he did against policy. They're just saying that he was just, kind of taking a little break. So.
Yeah, and I get however many eligible passes, touchdown to interceptions, but isn't this whole thing that since he was suspended, he got a break and got a vacation and got to rest? So at his, getting up there in the years, however old Tom Brady is right now, I can't remember.
39.
39. I was going to say 40, but I wasn't quite ready to put another candle on his birthday cake. Yeah, but you know what? Le'Veon Bell, by the same token, if you're going to say all these things and whatnot, things and stuff, I mean, Tom Brady was suspended because he's been accused of cheating. Le'Veon Bell is suspended for reasons that are that are sealed away in some envelope that can never be discussed publicly, at least while he's in the league. I'm sure this will come out in like 10 years and he'll tell us the truth because he seems to be an outspoken character. But Le'Veon Bell barely has more votes in this ESPN poll than Justin Tucker, a kicker for the Ravens. Seriously, you're going to have a kicker as an MVP? I suppose kickers are people too. I say things like that about punters and whatnot, but I don't know.
I think what they're looking at is the fact that I think I heard this morning on NFL Network that I guess the Patriots are 9-0 without Gronkowski, and nobody really feels that you can beat the Patriots when they have Gronk. And the fact that they have, but if you look at their schedule, they've had some weaker teams. I mean, they were anointing Brady the MVP his first game back, which was against Cleveland. I mean, come on. We beat Cleveland with our backups. I mean, it was ugly to start, but we did. So for some, I think it's perspective.
Yeah, for some of our fantasy players out there, I even think I owned Tom Brady on DraftKings. That was like week 5 or week 6.
So did I.
Yeah, it was like 98% ownership in most of the games because he was playing the Browns. It was ridiculous. So, speaking of the Browns, we're going to talk about them quite a bit too. But They're not looking for a head coach, but several teams are. So we may have talked about this. I get crisscrossed so much. I mean, the holidays are just a blur. I'm ready to fall asleep right now, getting back to the usual routine. But a lot of coaches looking for work, a lot of teams looking for coaches. So I discussed this with my one buddy. The one circumstance is with the Denver Broncos. Their coach retires. And we mentioned this maybe an episode or two back. We said nobody ever says Gary Kubiak inherited John Fox's team in the same way that people say Tomlin inherited Bill Cowher's team. But yet right. Kubiak, he cashed in the Super Bowl win. It looks like things got a little tough this year because he didn't have a quarterback. And hey guys, you know what? This is just too much for me. I'm out.
Well, I think that if you look at the big picture too, I mean, look at all the coaches that were in the hospital this year. I mean, we had Kubiak, we had the Jets
Todd Bowles.
Coach. Yeah, Todd Bowles was there. Arians was in the hospital, and there's one more, and I can't think of who it was.
Zimmer with the eye.
That's right.
It?
Zimmer was too. I mean, and they're not part of a union like the players are. I think they need to have less hours. I mean, nobody knows what it means to be an NFL coach, and it is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous the time that they put in, and huge WTF for me. I mean, you've got coaches, I mean, a percentage that actually were in the hospital. I mean, come on, let's get them some relief at least. So yeah, that's a big deal.
You know what?
Especially in California, we're losing coaches out here left and right. Jeez.
Yeah, San Diego. I thought McCoy was going to be gone. I thought that was the one we had actually mentioned. I said I was surprised he still had a job because he lost to the Browns. I thought, he would have been fired like Monday morning. And they gave him like one more day, but I don't know.
They let him pack his locker. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he had a few of his knickknacks. He was already rearranging his shelves and stuff. He had to know the writing was on the wall. I don't know how you could be that naive. Maybe. Well, I'm not going to say he is naive, and he'll be
an offensive coordinator somewhere. I mean, he's got a good quarterback mind. He's got a good offensive mind. He just doesn't have the pieces he needed to make his team work. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
He'll be an OC somewhere.
Absolutely. So, what is the best job available? I mentioned one already, the Denver Broncos. I think that has to be one that a head coach. When that job became available, it was kind of like, well, San Diego, you're screwed. Jacksonville, you're screwed. But I think the Broncos. Do you agree that by default that's the best job available because it was?
I do. I don't see how the other teams. First of all, you don't really have good quarterbacks, especially when it comes to 49ers. I don't know what the heck's going on out there. Jacksonville does have, Bortles, but he doesn't have, there's no owner support there. They try it for a year or two and, talk about a cheerleader in Gus Bradley. I mean, he's definitely a cheerleader guy and, he couldn't pull out of his players. Nicest guy ever. I've met him before and he couldn't pull out of his players what he needed. So I don't know what they're going to do down there, but there's just so many, Buffalo. I actually, if I can say this on the record, I actually see that possible landing spot if somebody drags Todd Haley kicking and screaming from our team. I do.
And Mike Tomlin, what did he say? I won't address.
He actually said it pretty bluntly. The crap.
That crap.
The
yeah.
Hypothetical crap. Yeah. Yeah. The problem with Todd Haley is that, and this is not a problem. I'm just saying what happened last year. They even said because they were talking about him in the conversation. Because we get so far in the playoffs, and I'm really agreeing with a lot of them out there that I think we're going to be the Super Bowl contenders. The jobs are usually taken by then.
Yeah.
So, they don't wait around, which they should, if they want the quality coach, but they don't always wait around. So he might be a candidate for a job, but if we get to the Super Bowl, or I should say when we get to the Super Bowl, he won't have an availability. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and I hope Haley sticks around. But he was extended, and that extension went through this year, so it's kind of up in the air. But I think he has a real cushy job. A lot of Steelers coaches, I mean, they hang on for a long time. There's coaches that have been with this staff longer than Mike Tomlin has. So. Yeah. Nothing's impossible. I think we would hate to see him go. The franchise scored 45 or more touchdowns. I think was the thing I saw for third straight year, and that's the most that's ever happened. And there was like all kind of. They always find these statistics and numbers that are like the first time ever, and sometimes it makes me think like who even thinks of this stuff. But somebody has a job to be the bean counter there, and. Unfortunately, I'm going to segue before we get into Cleveland. I want to talk about another thing that's just this is the press release for The NFL today announced that Aquafina will serve as the presenting sponsor of the 2017 Pro Bowl, which will take place at Camping World Stadium in Orlando. I don't even know what Camping World is. Maybe it's a chain. It's regional. It sounds silly to me. In Orlando, Sunday, January 29th, the 2017 Pro Bowl presented by Aquafina is a reimagined event that reimagines. I'm adding words now. But it features the return of the traditional AFC versus NFC format. Leading up to the game, the NFL will host a week-long festivities. That's a typo on their part, by the way, not me. I'm reading it as is. Will host a week-long festivities focused on youth football, which might be better than the actual game, to commemorate the brightest stars of today and tomorrow. Who cares? These guys get to go to Camping World Stadium in Orlando. They don't get to go to the nice trip in Hawaii this year. And it's all presented by Aquafina. Yay, yay, yay.
Yeah, they couldn't do like Jack Daniels or Budweiser or anything like that. Yeah, they had to do a water company.
Yeah, it just shows you how lame, and this is pretty good too. If you could look at all the Super Bowl logos over the last 5-6 years, it tells you how lame the NFL has gotten. They're just so routine. Maybe this has something to do with the ratings and everything else. So they go back to this other format.
I'm glad they went back to the other format because you don't want to hurt your own player. I mean, that other format was just dumb. But the thing that you just said, though, with Reimagine, it is in Orlando, and that's a Disney pun, right? So that's funny to me.
Well, it's not reimagined. It's the original format. That's why That's why this is a WTF, aside from Aquafina and Camping World Stadium. It just sounds like lame on top of lame on top of lame. And
it is.
I think saying the words lame... that goes right into the Cleveland Browns being the Cleveland Browns, the factory of sadness. They lost to our backups, and I had a lot to say about it on the last episode, but I'll let you chime in real quick. I just wanted to get a nice little jab in at the Brownies once again and all their fans who were talking a lot of smack, including my wife. Somebody had mentioned... I don't know if it was on Twitter or whatever, but he said something about my wife, knowing that she's a Browns fan. Yes, she was texting and taunting and everything else. And then when I came home for New Year's dinner following the game, and there were some family members over, and my one uncle is a Browns fan, he says, "Hey, the Browns didn't do too bad, did they?" And I'm like, I'm just like, are you kidding me? They turned the ball over 4 times. Yeah. And they beat themselves, and they lost to but when you take 4 Pro Bowl players out on the offensive side of the ball and you take out the all-time franchise sack leader for a guy who was inactive the week before, and you have another backup defensive lineman in there, that's 5 out of 22 players that you're sitting, plus all the other guys that, he didn't rest everybody, but geez, oh man, Cleveland they beat themselves. It deserves to be on this show.
It does. I mean, Landry Jones was just a fantasy football darling this last week. I mean, that was almost 30 points. He just did a great job I know my husband was excited. But it just was funny. As everybody knows, I do the live tweeting of the game from the Steel City Underground account. And it was hard for me the first half. It was hard because we just made mistake after mistake after mistake. Sean Davis, he's doing a great job as far as his tackling, but when we get into Burns and even looking at Shazier, they're kind of running over themselves there. Is it Crowell, the guy that they just kept giving up long yardage to?
Crowell,
yeah.
Crowell.
And it was just Crowell. I was trying to pronounce his name, but it was just whenever I think with Burns, he's doing a great job as a rookie, but when things get over his head, he has to have Mike Mitchell bail him out. And so he's got to really, focus and really understand that the routes are there for a reason. And Mike's been doing a great job, but they're there for a reason because he tends to miss some of those tackles. And then Shazier called out the team after the fact and basically said, they didn't show up. They bought into the technicality that, this was a meaningless game. And he needed to look in the mirror because if you review it, he kind of tripped over his own feet a couple times and gave up a 63-yarder. For Crowell. So
yeah, you had a few of those, and Mike Mitchell has been guilty on occasion, and Tomlin called it out right there, and
he did.
It may have even been Ramon Foster, maybe even Ben Roethlisberger had said it on their show on Tuesday. It said something about to the effect of if they hadn't missed those tackles, Crowell doesn't get 100 yards rushing. And I'm a firm believer in that as well. But the WTF for me from the game, although I would like to hear you repeat what you said about Landry Jones. Do you ever think those words would have come out of your mouth?
No.
But Jarvis Jones, the other Jones, no relation, He was like a WTF too because they couldn't do anything off that right edge, and you send Sean Davis over that side and you stack him. And this is in the film room on SteelCityUnderground.com if you want to check it out. They send Sean Davis over there for the first time. He blitzes and he gets a sack, and it's just like, are you kidding me? And it was pretty bad for their center. I think his name is Tony Fabiano. He was an undrafted guy. He's making, I think, his first start there because Cam Irving, yet another first-round draft pick for the Browns, has not worked out. He's supposed to be a center. He's supposed to be the heir apparent to Alex Mack, who went to the Falcons this year, who was a Pro Bowl center. He got out of town. He's been trying to get out of town for a while. Now they have to move Irving over the right tackle. They got this other guy playing, and he just gets absolutely abused by everyone. Dan McCullers, Javon Hargrave, LT, everybody had their way with them, except Jarvis Jones didn't really, but still, in a WTF all its own, Jarvis Jones had a pass deflected. Jarvis Jones punched out the ball for a fumble. You're just like, I don't know.
Where were you all season? Yeah,
are you good? Are you bad? And then on another play, you can't get off a block, and Crowell breaks off for a decent run, and you're
exactly.
It's just like Jekyll and Hyde every other play with Jarvis Jones. So
he reminds me of Landry. I mean, I think that but Landry's got a. I give Landry Jones a really hard time because he, obviously he's not my favorite. I think he doesn't have vision on the field, but I'm looking at all the other backups that are out there, and I have to say, as a backup, he's probably one of the better backups. So there's just no other backups out there that really know the schemes like he does. He just gets some rust the first quarter, and I think that rust is probably what I'm seeing more than the fact that he doesn't know what's going on, because he really came to play that second half.
Yeah, and some of that was the offensive line, and it just shows you how big a difference it is not having.
Killed.
It's a big difference when you don't have Marquise Pouncey in there at center too. It just shows you how big a difference a drop off between Pouncey and Ben to Finney and Jones. They still got the job done,
Finney, I think, got a lot of Twitter hate because, Jones was getting killed. I was like, okay, you guys, this is not the way to take him out. But it was just, I felt bad for him. Thank God there was no fumbles on it. He knew to hold on to the ball, but it was just, I felt bad for him. But Finney was playing center, and then they moved him finally over to where he needed to be. But it was just, I think him and Toussaint, who was in there for blocking, they were not communicating well at all, and it was just not going well.
Yeah, well, getting back to your backup comment and how maybe Landry Jones is one of the better ones. What? There's Tony Romo's out there. Oh, no, wait. Tony Romo's backup.
Yeah.
Mark Sanchez. We got to mention him.
Oh, my gosh. And I had to put that out on the Twitter tweeting only because, I'm getting these notifications as I'm tweeting out our game. And I had to laugh because, Tony, takes the ball down the field, 70 some odd yards, perfect touchdown. Then they pull him out. They're like, okay, so there's your job interview to go to, Chicago or wherever you're going. And then all of a sudden they put in Sanchez, who you knew he was going to get the rest of them. And he played exactly the way we knew he would. And so it was just kind of funny to me. I was just like, yeah, it's just awful. And then you see our game getting better and better. And you're like, yeah, I would take Landry Jones in a heartbeat over Mark Sanchez.
Yeah, I'm not sure Steelers and Browns, I'm not sure they got the national coverage. In fact, just trying to watch the highlights, they ignored half of the things that Cleveland did. If it was week one, it would have probably beat it to death, and they would have mentioned every little thing, and it was just like, okay, it's Cleveland. We're just tired of seeing this. So,
one WTF moment actually I think is interesting. Landry Jones said something, and it's not on our thing to cover, but real quickly, since we're talking about him, when Hayward Bay punched out that ball when the interception, and then because the guy didn't get into the end zone, we got the touchback. Landry actually said at his locker when they were interviewing him, he goes, all I saw was a fumble and nobody was jumping on it. So I thought, how about if I get on it and cradle it? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, that was the funniest comment ever. How about if I get on it and cradle it? This is my baby. I know I intercepted, but guess what I did? Yeah, so that was funny to me. I was like, WTF, Landry, that is really funny to me. So luckily for him, he was heads up.
That's hilarious because in the post game podcast that I did, I said he curled up in the fetal position when he got the ball, and it was just like just anticipating someone else to maybe dive on him or fight for it, and nobody did. He just looked like he was like almost terrified having this ball. So going from I guess terrified is a good segue word to use when we're talking about the main portion of the show, even though we've been on for a little bit here. This week, Sports Illustrated, in an attempt to boost sales of copies of their rag of a magazine, have probably gone from covering sports to being no more than a tabloid issue. Ben Roethlisberger on the cover with a headline in feature article, the most polarizing player in the NFL, bringing up all the nasty, dirty, ugly things of which he was suspended for back in 2010 to start that season. And you know what? You just can't let things like this go. The writer, S.L. Price, as you pointed out, from Miami, it's like they just waited for the playoffs. They waited to drudge up all of these old stories of which there were never any formal charges pressed. You had whatever sheriffs or whatever police, law enforcement that were part of the investigation saying there probably wasn't enough evidence to go by. You basically have what amounts to a dumb young jock and probably some dumb young girls and whatever it is that people do. And for some reason, we're supposed to not be allowed to forgive and forget when it comes to Big Ben. I got a few more things to say about it, but I call it what I believe it is. It is a hit piece and nothing more than sensational garbage trying to gather some attention for a dying brand.
I agree. It just was so shocking when I saw it, and and knowing that Ben has seen it as well, and his people, and he's trying to block out all the noise and try to focus on Miami this week, and they're also looking past Miami to Kansas City as well. And so to have to even deal with it just from I hate to say an embarrassment standpoint, but just from really, God, we're doing this again. And, it was nothing, let's just move on. The past should stay the past. Everybody's got it, but nowadays with, social media and some really obnoxious people out there. And like you said, clickbait. You like to use that word, and I've never heard that before until you used it, and that's exactly what it was, clickbait.
Yeah, and to
ridiculous.
To explain what that kind of means, it's almost like the shock jock type thing, like the Howard Stern. Let's make a title as sensational as it can be, and the title almost doesn't fit the article in some points. And the article actually starts out by saying, we haven't heard anything since these alleged, accusations, and I keep telling people, accusations does not equal guilt.
No.
Court of public opinion, and I was talking about this on Twitter today with somebody, and I said, okay, perception can be reality, but perception should be based on facts and things that you could prove. And really, no matter which side of this that you're on, this author, this writer, he says in the very first paragraph or two that you haven't heard anything for this long, but now he's going to tell you all the bad things, and he's going to make some reaches on some quotes. He's going to say the whole entire town of Findlay, Ohio. Well, he tries to make a race issue, and it's a hot button thing because Ben listened to hip hop music, but his predominantly white hometown turned his back on him because of he likes hip hop music. I didn't know that was exclusive. Maybe some players don't like their hometown because all the people there listen to country music or something. It made no sense to me. It was a complete disconnect. And to actually admit at the beginning of the article that there's nothing that has transpired in all these years, but then to drag all this out and make this big to-do about it, and you throw in some feel-good stuff about it, to try and not make it look like a hit piece, but the thing is so long, it goes on forever and ever, and you're reading it, and you're reading it, and reading it, and the real accusations, the real allegations were for sexual assault, and everybody wanted to take that leap and make it rape. This guy mentioned sexual assault one time in this article. It's probably 5,000-6,000 words. He mentions the word rape 9 times. You tell me what his agenda is when he's trying to say that Roethlisberger is the most polarizing player in the NFL. He's pointing out people like myself that wear Ben's jersey and whether we should. He uses the word womanizer and supporting things with womanizing as part of, hey, you should feel ashamed of wearing a Roethlisberger jersey. Why? This is the same guy who did a piece on Michael Vick and said that his story coming from prison and the things that he did that to end up out of the NFL and the comeback and his comeback story. And there are still people, and it doesn't matter what side of the fence that you're on this subject. Like I said when we were coming into this, I don't want to bring any type of politics or agendas ever. It has no place in sports. This is my main point of this being a cover issue for Sports Illustrated, emphasis on sports. You're going to say Michael Vick's story is a part of us. And right. Everybody has that story. Well, how isn't this the same thing? This is also a learning experience, maturity. I made a mistake. I'm trying to get beyond it. But this guy still wants to bring up the R word, something that's a very serious accusation, something that was never proven, something he never went to court or trial about. But it's okay. In one case, we could forgive that. And by the way, he also did a piece on Ryan Lochte during the Olympics, if you remember the swimmer, and he lied about whatever in Brazil. So this is kind of this writer's forte, is to just do these sensational bits, and that's it. And I think it's very disgusting. I think it's very lowbrow, and I think it has no place. And the timing is very obvious, and the reasonings are very obvious, and they're getting a lot of backlash from it because he did not speak to Ben. He said, well, Ben has always declined. Well, what would you do if you were accused of something? You just get tired of hearing it. You don't want I don't want to do an interview, of course, because I don't want you putting it back out there, but you're just going to do it anyways, even without him. And what did that guy say? That I traveled to Baltimore and I did this and did that. And it's like, well, so what?
Right. I mean, in the very end, the last sentence in the article, which again, it disgusted me, was just basically, he said, and Ben Wood declines to be interviewed for these stories. Well, that's also because if you talk to Ben's people, Peter King is back and forth on him. One minute he's, the king of the world. The next minute, because he won't do what he wants him to do, he's trash talking him. So, it's unfortunate that we have hacks like that out there that don't give quality, accurate reporting, but the falsehoods, the innuendo, and like you said, the R word used when that was never part of the conversation or the accusation is just really unfortunate. Ben does not need that, and it's really unfair to ring that bell when you can't unring that bell. It's just gross.
There were several things within the article that had already been proven wrong or had been proven to be hearsay, and they were included as part of fact. And then he's talking about how and correct me if I'm wrong, but the impression I got was he was trying to paint as though Ben does all these things as to try and be like a con man or put on this show. And it's like, he doesn't mention any of his work with the canine charities or any of these other things that he does. And it's just like, this is just ridiculous. So
Ben is probably one of the most private quarterbacks out there. He's not a public, he tries not to be such a public figure. And it's like somebody's trying to pull him out to be a public figure. And if he doesn't, then we're going to slam you.
Yeah.
And it was just wrong.
So he's the most polarizing player in the NFL. And at the beginning of the article saying, and maybe even in pro sports, since Kobe Bryant, another guy who was wrongfully accused, by the way, is now retired. And it's like, dude, have you seen the things that are going on in the league and the people that are in and out all the time? You want polarizing. You could look at Johnny Manziel, who is, okay, so he's out. So who's next on the totem pole? Going down the line here, we have Vontaze Burfict, a guy that does things on the field, tosses camera men over in the big cameras and twists people's ankles and gets into fights and has been fined like 6 different times and suspended. And he
just got arrested again.
Now Pac-Man Jones is the one.
Pac-Man Jones. I'm sorry.
Pac-Man Jones, and this is the official piece that I pulled. I think this came from ESPN this was from USA Today. 33 years old, originally arrested early Tuesday morning on suspicion of assault, disorderly conduct, and obstructing police after officers responded to a Cincinnati hotel, but a felony charge of harassment with a bodily substance was added. A felony charge added. Yes, because he spit on a nurse while attempting to take a court-ordered blood sample during the booking process. Okay, but Ben is the most polarizing guy because of some accusation. Somebody could just come out and say the sky is purple, or the sky. Let's pick a color it can't possibly be. The sky is I don't even know, fuchsia,
orange.
Pink. Yeah, well,
right.
I like orange. I didn't want to put orange in there, but And it can't be true, but they're going to stick to that, and by all means, now you have to go with that story, and let's bring it up years later. So, Pac-Man Jones, a whole other league of WTF. I'm sure there's other players I could bring up. There's always stuff with substances, with drug use. Michael Floyd falling asleep on the wheel. We talked about this on the show not too long ago, and it almost seems like for something where we try to be lighthearted and not so serious with the WTF thing and have some fun. We've already talked about DUI, and now we're talking about rape, and these things are not things to be joked about, let alone throw this onto somebody. Michael Floyd wants to forget about what he just did. He's lucky he still has a job in the NFL, and he hasn't had any punishment thrown his way. But does that mean in 4 years somebody shouldn't wear his jersey or should feel the least bit guilty about it? I don't think so. That's just
right.
That's going way too far. So, Terry, I'm going to have an aneurysm.
I know. And then it's funny because I know as we lead into Miami, I think that the biggest thing that we're going to have to really look at as far as a WTF moment is that we have to make sure we don't turn the ball over, just changing channels a little bit here. If we can do that, then we'll be fine. Otherwise, it's going to be all over. What the heck are we doing out there?
Well, for anybody who thinks Jay Ajayi's in the same class of Le'Veon Bell, he's a fine runner in his own, but if you put the box scores up, he had 2 big games with over 200 yards. One against us, I think one maybe against the Bills, if I recall. Bills or Jets. It was one of the division opponents, I think. And the Miami Dolphins, we had pointed out, and we're going to get to this in a preview, but 2 of the teams that they faced with winning records being the Patriots and the Ravens over the last span of whatever their winning streak was, or however many, 6 games, 8 games, whatever it was. And they got blown out by them. Everybody else had a losing record. Miami played 4 straight games at home, didn't leave South Florida for the entire month of October. They had a very cushy schedule that definitely bodes in their favor, and that's how they got into the postseason, in my opinion. We're going to have a lot more to talk about come the preview show, but Terry, just the WTF, I'm trying to not say any more about Ben. We're already going over on time here, so I'm going to say we sign off. You could follow Terry at Terry in SoCal if, as in California. Terry, give a shout out real quick.
Yeah, thank you. I hope everybody follows me, and also know that we live tweet every weekend with the games. We'll be doing it again for Wild Card Weekend, so hang with us, and we give you all kinds of tidbits, not just the game, but some commentary as well. So we try to give a little humor too. Sometimes we have to, as we're yelling at our TVs or yelling from the stadium.
Absolutely. So until next time, folks, absolutely. I'm expecting some calls on the hotline. So 203-900-4SCU. Give us a call. I really would like to play a few of these on the air and see what you guys think about, the hit piece and anything else that we talked about on the show. Until next time, be safe, be good. I'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.